What's up, guys? So today we are going to be talking about building a business from $0 to $1 million. And with me, I have our Stark CMO who has helped many brands get from $0 to $1 million, Emerson Guerrero.
Hey, Adam. Excited to talk about this?
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to chat about this is, one, for multiple reasons. Like, $1 million is really an arbitrary number, but for some reason, it's a very important number.
Still that big, eye in the sky number that, you have to hit.
100%. So it's like when you have a startup business, like everyone wants to know, like how do I get to $100,000? And when you get to $100,000, like how do I get to $1 million, right? And the reason I say it's arbitrary is because we've seen tons of businesses hit $1 million and they're losing money. And we've seen businesses that are doing $400,000 a year in revenue, but they're making $100,000, EBITDA. So that being said, it's still a milestone, right? And like if you're able to get from 0 to 1 million and you're either profitable or breaking even, or depending on the business model, losing a little bit of money, it's a milestone, and it signifies something. It means that you've established a few core fundamentals about your business. And we've seen, sort of trends. Like a lot of businesses are different, and there are different paths from 0 to 1 million. But there's certain fundamentals that hold true when you're trying to get to that point, right? Like, so I'm just going to list them out, and then we're going to talk a little bit about each one. So first, product market fit. That's true whether it's a product or a service. You need to be able to have something that people want to buy or sign up for, and you need to prove the concept that that is true. You need to figure out who your audience is. After you figure out who your audience is, you need to figure out how you are going to reach that audience. Then you need to figure out how you can build a predictable sales process. We'll come back to this, but this is a place where most businesses suffer early on, and it's that big obstacle that you need to overcome. You need to diversify your marketing strategies when the timing is right. You need to look into product development or additional services in order to increase revenue based on customers that you already have, rather than constantly acquiring new customers for your business to grow. And look for upsells and cross-sells. So with all of that being said, let's just dive right into it. Emerson, talk a little bit about when a business is coming up with an idea for a product, or coming up with a service, something that they're going to sell, whatever that is, professional services, landscaping, you name it. What are some of the things that people should be thinking about when they're trying to think about whether this product or this service or this SaaS platform, is this actually a business?
Yeah, I think you sort of put it correctly in the kind of breakdown. It's product market fit, right? I think there's the mistake a lot of entrepreneurs that we've seen make, or brands that kind of didn't make it, is that they sort of feel like they have the magic bullet for everyone, or they're sort of trying to reach such a wide audience with something, or they're saying, this is for this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, without kind of knowing, one, how that product fits in the market, but also who that like real prime customer is. So when we think about, how that product market fit works, it kind of starts with the audience, in the way that you kind of broke it down. Because if you can help an audience, and you sort of know, my idea is for these people and I see exactly how it helps them, you now have a lane that you're sort of stuck to, and you can kind of now build everything around that before you get to some of those later stages of your breakdown, things like diversification, things like, building the sales funnel. It's like, does what I'm building, whether it's digital, whether it's tangible, sort of match and help someone to a level of, what they're going to need? But then the market fit part becomes, does someone already have something similar that I'm going to have to compete with? Well, that changes how you sort of think. Is it you're improving on something that's already out there? Well, now you have a selling point, or is it something brand new that you now have to educate people on? But at least if you now understand how those things mesh, you can build off of it.
100%. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners who are starting up do the first part of what you said, right? They come up with a product that makes sense, but when it gets to the market fit point, they haven't spent the time doing the market research to understand whether their product or service is actually viable in the marketplace. And people think market research needs to be this complicated thing. You don't need a market research firm or
100 hours of brand study and
without a doubt. You don't need that, but you can do very basic things to understand whether your product has a place in the market that you're trying to enter. So if most businesses, the vast majority of businesses, are starting a business in something that already exists, right? There are a small subsection of businesses that are introducing new things to the market that don't exist out there, but most businesses are not that. You already have competition. So at a basic level, have you spent enough time Googling your competition? If you're selling, one, are you going national, or is your brand targeting a specific geographic location? So if you're going national, whether it's with a service or a product, you're competing with everybody, right? So now you have to figure out, like, okay, what makes me different from them? What is my pricing structure compared to their pricing structure? Who are the biggest people in that space, and how much trust or brand equity do those big people have with the audience that they serve? Because you're going to have to pull people away from that. These are all things that you're going to have to consider when you're looking at the national scale, because you may have a great product, but can you sell it to people is something that you need to figure out. Now, if you're a local business, you're a service business, food business, whatever it is, that's serving a certain geographic location, however far afield, how much competition do you have in your area? If you're opening up a business, where a service business, to serve a market where people need to come into your office and your closest competitor is 15 miles away, you're probably in a pretty good spot. However, if you're opening something where there's 9 people around you in a 3-mile radius, why would someone pick you over them? What makes you unique in either your service offering, and what is your pricing structure relative to their pricing structure? These are all things that you need to consider before you even decide you want to take the plunge and go down this path.
Right. And even the type of things like, in a local situation, it's what do people think about your competition? Are there a few, companies that people really like that are kind of dominating the space? And you go, okay, well, what is our differentiator at that point? And that is even done on a broad level, whether it's a software. It's like, what are we doing better than the people that are out there? But also what maybe people don't like about, these sort of things, to find that gap and how you're sort of differentiating, but how you're also, fitting into the market.
So let's talk about, you've done the research, it's going to be competitive, or you've got a soft market where you feel like you're going to be able to, penetrate and enter quickly. And I think, this point in time in the United States, that's less and less the case. Most businesses that you're going to start, you're going to enter with a high level of competition. And the next step is finding that audience, right? Like, so you've determined you have a product, you feel like you have product market fit, but you don't know it yet till you actually test it. You're going to find out once you actually start marketing and advertising whether you actually do have product market fit, but you have enough information that you feel like there's a real opportunity here. As a CMO who does this a lot when it comes to, honing in on the audience, and, you've got the big audience, the total addressable audience. Many products and services apply to different people for different reasons. And then you've got subsections of that audience, right? Like that buy that product for a variety of reasons. How do you go about that part with the startup brand where there may be data in the marketplace, but there's no data with them specifically about determining who the right audience is and then building those customer profiles?
So it's interesting because I think it starts, it kind of bleeds in, right? From the work that you're doing on developing the product and that market fit sort of, and that competitor sort of research and understanding. It's figuring out kind of what are all these competitors potentially doing, and then what kind of aligns those competitors. So if you got, 9 competitors, but 6 of them are doing something very similar, that may tell you something that goes like, okay, there's a reason that this may be happening. But ultimately, the biggest part of it is like finding the audience and sort of where they're at, and then how you can kind of meet them at where they're at. And there's a ton of ways to do that from a paid perspective. There's on any advertising channel you can sort of think of, but then there's a ton of ways to sort of potentially do that through organic reach, or, I know we'll talk about it later, but sort of building that almost more like predictable kind of sales funnel in terms of like, where are we starting? And then how are we sort of building it through? But when it comes to the audience side, it's like, okay, if we think we know our audience, let's sort of break that down. So for instance, if it's, we have a software that is legal, right? It's a legal software, targets lawyers, but it's artificial intelligence. So it's very tech forward. So even though we know in theory the full addressable market was lawyers, we also know this is a software. So that's going to remove, a lot of people who may not be tech savvy enough to look for this sort of thing. It's artificial intelligence. So we know that removes a lot of people who may still be on the fence. That's still a market we can address later, but it may not be our initial sort of in. And we know exactly what this tool does and which type of lawyer it's going to help. So we sort of can build the persona based on what the product does first, and then sort of extrapolate that kind of lowest hanging fruit audience, and then figure out where those people are. Do they have intent? Are they looking for this thing? And if not, do we need to educate? Does that need to be more of a content-driven strategy? Those type of things are what we can kind of dive into once we've sort of cut from the top level of the audience down to like, who is going to be that initial building block that we want to go from.
Yeah, I think about the difference between, finding the audience and establishing who the audience is. And one thing I've always, the lens that I've tried to view this through is, what are the value propositions of what you offer? And how do you tie that to the problems it solves for different people? And I think that generally will lead you to who your audience is. And I always use the example of a protein bar because I think it's an easy way to illustrate the point, right? We know that people buy things for different reasons, as we've said, and a protein bar can be purchased for many, many different reasons. Some people may... So actually, let me take a step back. So if you say, what are the attributes of my protein bar? Let's use Quest as an example, right? Because I like their protein bars. So Quest bars are 150, 190 calories, I think, something like that. They're low carb. They taste decent, depending on who you ask. I think they taste pretty good, but, people have a wide variety of opinions on that. I think I said 25 grams of protein. And they are, I believe, all natural or, whatever. I don't know. This is not an advertisement for Quest. So,
yeah, don't hold us liable for any,
no affiliation.
Claims.
Yeah. So now, who has problems that these bars solve? Well, there's people who want quick snacks, right? They want something fast, easy, high fiber, high protein. They're not necessarily like bodybuilding, but they can get this protein bar. There's bodybuilders who are looking for easy ways to get more protein. There's fitness people who are looking for easy ways to get more protein. There's working moms and dads who just need something that they can throw in a briefcase and eat in their car from one meeting to the other, picking kids up. And, so as I'm breaking these down, these are all different audiences that you can hit. The key is, like, you have to establish all of those audiences that could be a potential fit for your product or service. And then once you do that, you need to figure out who you think is the lowest hanging fruit. Now, you're going to figure out who the lowest hanging fruit is. Sometimes it's just gut. It's just a feeling that, like, I know this is the right thing. But you can also look at competitors relative to that audience. So you're not looking at like competition at a holistic level. You're saying, for these working moms, what other alternatives are there for like quick, healthy, fast food? For these bodybuilders, where are they going to go for protein? Do we have a bar that has more protein at lower calorie? Do we have a bar that has less protein and is higher calorie? These are what are going to help you determine who the right audience to start with is and how to test whether you have product market fit with that audience.
So let me ask you this, because we've seen it done both ways with clients we worked with and just companies that we've sort of been around. But, is, in your opinion, is the better strategy to sort of go, I know my product is good for everyone, or like a Quest bar has this value that all these different people can use, and I'm going to sort of adapt different messaging to those different audiences as a starting point? Or is it to say, you know what, we're going to go all in on this specific audience. We're going to go all in on the working sort of professional who doesn't have time to eat all the time, and that's all of our messaging and all of our sort of, marketing and our imagery is all going to be to that person to start, and then maybe we can figure it out from there once we sort of nail down that audience. I mean, do you have, like, where do you think is the right way to start for this type of business that's starting from zero?
I think it all comes down to the resources that the brand has, right? So obviously in an ideal world, I would want to test all of the different audiences at the same time with unique messaging that is relevant and direct to that specific audience. The problem is you're going to lose a lot of money playing that game, because if you're testing 8 different audiences, different messaging, different campaigns, 6 out of 8 don't work, 2 do work. Now you know what the winners are. You still dumped all that money on the 6th, You'll recoup it, as you double down on the audiences that are performing, but you're going to lose money in the short run, as you figure out this process. So if a brand has the resources and the stomach to do that early, when they're launching a company, that would be my preference. However, a lot of brands don't have the resources to take those initial losses or the stomach to be comfortable with those initial losses. So in those situations, I say, find the 1 or 2 things that you believe give you the greater chance of success when targeting audiences and go into that.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that we've seen, a lot of times people who have the right idea, brands that have the right idea, but either, like you said, the stomach, which is a really big part of it, or just the capital. You don't, and trying to do too much without really the ability to learn enough can really sort of hurt. So, I mean, that's always been my opinion, is like, find the focus, do the work in the beginning, all the stuff we talked about, find your market fit, that audience you really feel like it's going to mesh with your product, your sort of mission, and then, really put in the effort to get those people, because you can always, once you have that working, there's ways to go from there.
100%. So we've determined that we believe our product is viable. We've figured out who our audience is. Now we need to figure out how to reach that audience, which is another way to say marketing and advertising, right? Like, we have something, we know who we want to get it in front of. How do we get in front of those people? In 2024, there's a bazillion ways to do this. And this can often lead to paralysis of people not knowing what to do. This can lead to spreading yourself too thin. You think you need to be doing everything. So talk to me about platform strategy. How do you think through where we should be advertising and marketing? I mean, you've got advertising, social advertising, search advertising, radio, connected TV, television, streaming, podcasts, like all these different places. You've got content marketing, organic content, social media. You've got referrals. You've got networking. If you're in a service business, you've got outbound sales, cold email, cold calling, and all the rest of it. How are you thinking about the process as to determine where a person is going to reach that audience?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think it funnels kind of like the last one. It funnels from the step before it, right? It's like, once you've sort of locked down your audience, it's easier to sort of understand where they are. And sometimes it's obvious. It's, hey, it's a B2B situation where we know there's going to be a direct sales element to it. And it's like, well, if you don't have that working correctly, then none of the other stuff you do before then is going to matter, because you sort of need that like outbound sales or that sort of consultative kind of approach that's happening to actually sort of, get the business. So we can't go like, Facebook ads are going to get us, all that we need. When it comes to consumer products, it now is more, where is that audience? So are they on Instagram? Are they on TikTok? Are they on both? But we feel like, there's more buying power on Instagram versus TikTok. Is it a type of product that people are looking for? Because that's where Google plays a big role. But if they are looking for it on Google, it's back to the competitors. So it's going like, you're on Google, but, there's 10 other people on Google and it's going to be too expensive. So it's kind of back to that conversation of, how's the stomach of what we can try, or if there's one thing we want to focus on. And a lot of times, it's trying to find the balance of, on the paid advertising side, which platform makes the most sense to put, the biggest push behind, and then what are those supplementary things we're doing, whether it's, we need to have a really good funnel of organic content that's going to sort of mean that maybe our ads are a little bit more brand awareness, but we know that like getting into the ecosystem is really important. Or we know that, your lifetime customer value, because you're a subscription product, is more important, but we have a heavier education load. So we need to produce, videos, we need to produce podcasts, we need to produce all this sort of stuff that's going to help, move your audience along. But really it's a matter of like where your audience is, what is the most cost-effective way to reach them, and then what do we need to do outside of that to make sure that like there's enough brand building to get that conversion or get that sort of person connected to the brand.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, like you said, where's the audience? What is the easiest way to reach that audience? And do I have the ability to do that? And that is going to help you determine it, because you may say my audience is here. I know social ads are the way to go. I can reach them on TikTok and Instagram, and that would be the easiest way to do it, but I don't have the money for it. Well, your decision's made for you. You can't run social ads, or I don't have enough money to give it a proper, go at it and like test. And then you say, okay, well, what's the next viable option, to reach the audience, So if you're in a service business, especially in the B2B world, I fully agree with what you said. I think the vast majority of businesses should start with outbound sales, right? Because if you don't have a massive budget, it doesn't take money to email people and call people. If you have money and people are searching for your service and Google is not prohibitively, expensive, then you can get high intent people who are searching for you. If you are a, direct to consumer brand and you know that you should be investing in social advertising, but you don't have the money for it, then you should be creating content and you should be building that community organically. I'm actually very bullish on community building, especially in 2024. And I don't think enough brands are doing it well, right? Like I was telling this to a person I was speaking to the other day. They have this idea for this camping thing that, they want to launch, but, they have to build it, they have to develop it, and they're a year out. They're easily a year out from launching this thing. And I was like, you should be creating Instagram pages today on everything camping. And you should be pumping out content about the top 5 camping spots in Utah and the, 5 best new tents, or, I'm not a camper, as you can tell, whatever you want, but you should be building that community now, because a year from now, you already have trust with that community and you're rolling your product out to a group of people who already trust you, so it's like there's so much of that legwork that can be done in advance. But the bottom line is, you need to figure out what the resources are. If you have money for advertising, what you're going to get in exchange for that is speed. You can get to market very quickly.
You're going to learn faster.
You flip a switch and 1 million people see what you're offering. You're quickly going to find out, is this priced right? Is it too expensive? Is it not expensive enough? Read the comments. I know they're toxic, but read them. 1 out of every 6 comments is going to give you actual good information that is going to help you iterate on your product or service or what you're offering, because you're new. You're just going into the marketplace. This is going to give you information back. If you don't have money for advertising, don't be discouraged. There are a ton of ways to build your brand organically. It may take a little bit longer because you're at the mercy of the algorithm and the quality of the content that you produce and the rest of it. But I think those are the big things that, for me, determine where you should start as far as trying to reach your audience. Like, what is the runway as far as money and capital goes? Is that runway enough to sustain advertising for you to figure out the process? And do you have the resources to also supplement with content creation, all the rest of it?
You mentioned something interesting kind of about community, building, as kind of a part of that. For a brand that could sort of use that method or that sort of idea, you talked about the camping, thing of just kind of getting out there. What is some advice you'd have about the steps they can take to kind of do that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, add value to the people that you're trying to serve. you know? So if you have a community, you're rolling out a product, you want to be in a specific community. One, I'm going to start with the assumption that you know that community really well, because there's a pretty solid chance that you're a part of that community, right? Whether it's camping or food or whatever it is. And people consume social media either to be educated or to be entertained, or, you know, keep in touch with family and friends and the rest of it. Outside of family and friends, it's, you know, it's education, it's entertainment. And I would sort of education and information, you know, sort of the same thing. So you want to give stuff out that is either educational or entertaining while asking for nothing in return in the process, you know? And if you're developing a content strategy, one, figure out what is the medium that makes the most sense for what you're trying to offer and for your personality, right? Like if you are not comfortable getting on camera, I would encourage you to do it anyway, but let's just say you're not. You've got carousel posts, you know, you've got images, you've got all these ways to get your message out there. You've got Twitter, you've got platforms like LinkedIn that are, you know, text heavy, and, you know, you can do that if you're good in camera. Start putting content out there, but also don't overthink it, you know, like just consistency and quality are the most important things when putting content out, but you never get the quality if you don't start with consistency.
Yeah, it's like, to your point, it's why people are on social media is entertainment, education, you know, these things that are not, you know, this deal is happening, or like, you should buy our product because, you know, of this, or cool product shots, and these things that, you know, I think maybe did work 7, 8 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. But I tell clients this a lot when that's their organic social focus. I go, you know, how long have you had Instagram? You know, it's since 2008 or 2009 or whatever. And I go, how many people have you followed? You know, 1,000 people. How many people have you unfollowed? 4. It's like, so the algorithm doesn't know how to handle the fact that everyone just keeps adding and adding and adding to it. And the first thing that falls a lot of times is brands, because people skip over their content if it's not engaging, educational, entertaining. And so really it's like your best shot is to really stop trying to directly sell your product and build your community, like you said, because you can supplement that with your advertising, all that sort of stuff. But, you know, you're never going to break through that door if you're just trying what worked.
So once you've started advertising and marketing the business, you know, content, paid ads, search, whatever it is, you're probably on this path from $0 to $1 million, going to do multiple of these things because you don't know what works for you in your business at this point. You're going to run some paid advertising, you're going to run some search marketing, you're going to create content, you're going to be email marketing, you're going to be networking and all, you know, outbound sales potentially. And at a certain point, you're going to find something that works. You know, there's going to be a lot of failures, but there's something that's going to work where you did this and product sold and you made money, or you did these few things and people signed up for your service or hired you for different things. And you're going to go, wow, like that was incredible. I remember for me, this is the most exhilarating part of the business, you know, early on 10 years ago when we had no advertising budget at Stark. And at that point, it was just Rich and I used to cold call. And every so often, I would have a good conversation. And they would say, send me a proposal. And I would send a proposal. And then they would sign a proposal. And I would be like, this is incredible. Like, I'm going to cold call forever, right? Like they're like, this is the best thing ever. Obviously, that's not sustainable. And then, you know, we start making a little bit more money and we grow. And, you know, Emerson comes on board, hire number 4 at Stark. And we start running paid advertising and leads come in and they speak to one of us, now our business development team, and they sign up. And, you know, like when it first happens, it's so exhilarating. And a lot of businesses have those aha moments, but then they don't double down on it when it happens. They continue to be spread too thin. And most businesses fail because they fail to build a predictable sales process. And in the early stages of a business, trying to get from 0 to 100,000 to $1 million, the entire game is building a predictable sales process, knowing where and how you can spend $1 or X amount of time, and that is going to turn into X dollars of profit and revenue and the rest of it. And I can't tell you how important it is and how people don't focus on it nearly enough. So talk to me about building, a predictable sales process, what you think about it, what some of the mistakes you think people make, where you advise people on how to develop this in the early stages where you're making big decisions on small amounts of information.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is trying to move on too fast from wins, to your point, without doubling down on what's working. Because there's always going to be the ability to push something that's working until it plateaus. And a lot of people don't hit that plateau because they start going like, I like this, now I want this. Or I want this, whether it's different products, whether it's, oh, what if we could get these people, or they're going to introduce new products already because they're going like, oh, this proves that we can sell. It's like, no, you've proved one thing, but you're going to do a lot better if you can know that thing's going to, be predictable, to your point. The other sort of mistake on not doubling down enough is just sort of going like, let's try a completely different platform, or let's sort of go, in a bunch of different directions, or maybe even try and sell the product that's working differently because you're just going like, well, I want to, this seems stale to me. And it's like, we've had people come to us and go like, oh, that ad's been running for a long time. And you're like, well, it's working. It's like, we're not going to turn it off.
4x ROAS.
Yeah, we're not going to turn it off, if it's not working. And they're like, but it's, it's been a long, shouldn't there be something new? And it's like, no, not really. At some point, yes, because everything's going to have a shelf life. But, until you sort of know that, and that's my biggest pet peeve in advertising is when we don't hit the plateau because of whatever the reason is. And I'll give you an example. I mean, we've had clients that sort of, have started at maybe a 10K spend a month. And it's like, okay, it takes a little while to build, and then you're happy with the results. And they go, okay, let's move to 20K. And the day you move to 20K a month and spend, the daily budget goes up and the results aren't as good anymore because it's still got to figure it out. Well, there's some people that would go, oh no, go back to 10. And if you do that, you never learn the plateau. And as long as it's still going forward, there's more room to grow. And the most successful businesses we work with really sort of let that sales funnel go. And then you can go in all these different directions. But I'd be interested, because I'm always so locked into the, ad structure of it, your perspective on just how those funnels can be built, because there's other ways to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think about when building a predictable sales process about once you find something that's worked at this stage in business, you go all into it, right? You can go from $0 to $1 million purely on the back of Facebook ads. You can go from $0 to $1 million purely on the back of search marketing. Same thing with organic content and the rest of it. And I agree with you. I think people want to diversify for bad reasons. Sometimes it's just they think that it's what they should be doing, right? Like we should be in multiple places. This is true eventually, not in this stage in the business. In this stage of the business, you run once you find a winner for as long and as far as you can run. And I also agree with you that there will be the point of diminishing returns as spend increases in a certain space. You have to measure, do those returns diminish below the point where you're profitable? Because if you're still making money and you're still growing, you keep going. We see this a lot in the podcast space, right? So we do a deal with whatever personality and they're going to do three ad reads a month, 3 host reads a month, promoting whatever brand, and it's crushing. So we say, let's bump that to 5, and it's still crushing. And then we say, let's bump that to, 8 a month. And then we see with 8, we're doing the same numbers that we were doing with 5. We just found where the threshold is. So now, like we bump back down to 5 and we say, that's the sweet spot for this brand and this audience. But I think this is the point that I really want to hammer home to people is don't diversify your marketing sources for the sake of diversifying. When you found a winner and you're in startup mode or you're small and you're looking to grow, run with that as fast as you possibly can, because every dollar or hour of time spent, every dollar or period of time spent in other places is hurting you. It would do better if it was in that place.
Especially if you're taking it away from what's working.
100%, you know, or not adding to it.
Right.
If you've got money in other places and Meta's crushing for you, all of that money should be going to Meta.
Right.
You know,
until it can't anymore. Right?
Until it can't
until,
anymore.
like you said, you hit that plateau.
Yes. Now, as you start to grow and as the business is profitable and as you get more stable, and this could be after you've crossed the $1 million threshold, it could be slightly before, but there will be a time where you want to diversify, where you know that things change. You know, I mean, there was a TikTok bubble a year ago where every video was, you know, like a lot of video. I saw it in my content. Like, you know, I mean, I posted a video. The worst video did 20,000 views. The best ones are going to 100,000s, and a lot of creators. And then you saw that, you know, there was a dip, and now, you know, so you're not getting the same sort of reach and exposure, and those things can happen, which is why you want to have a diversified marketing plan. So I want to be very clear. We're not promoting not being diversified where you're dominant on multiple channels. We're talking, this is very specific to companies who are on that path from 0 to 100,000 to $1 million.
And once something has been found out, once you've learned something to tell you to push forward.
Yeah, 100%. So once you get to that threshold, and you'll know, you know, there's no formula for knowing when you're at that place where you need to diversify. You're going to know it. It's going to be based on, you know, where your numbers are, where you've plateaued, how much overhead do you have, can you sustain the risks of and the dips and swings of being on one platform and dealing with the ebbs and flows of it. As you get bigger, as you get overhead, you're not going to be able to take a 20% dip in revenue, you know, or a 30% dip in revenue. It means you have to lay people off, or, you know, whatever it is. So now you want to get more solid, you want to get more stable, and that's when you start looking to the other platforms, right? You're doing really well on Meta, your Facebook and Instagram, and you're like, okay, let's take 5%, 8% of the budget and let's test TikTok. But now you're testing from a position of strength. It's not like it was when you were at $0 or $10,000.
You have a stronger stomach, so to speak, now. That's to your point.
It doesn't crush you if, like, the test doesn't work. You look at it very analytically, non-emotionally, and objectively. And you're like, that didn't work. I'm going to test this, and I'm going to test that. And you just keep expanding till you find the next winners. And then you keep doing that as well. So let's talk about, you know, add-ons, service additions, upsells, and cross-sells, because I think that's another thing that if you were a product business or a service business and you found a way to get from 0 to, let's just say, $250,000, you've sold enough product or sold enough services that you've built a base of people who trust you. Now, I'm going to make an assumption here that is not always true. It's often not true. But let's talk to the people who've actually built a product that people like. You know, like they've built something you like. Because if you build something that people don't like, you're in trouble anyway. You know, I mean, those people aren't repeat purchasing. They're not referring other people to it. And, like, you know, you need to go back a step to the product phase of this and, like, iterate in the product and get it to something that people actually love. If you've tackled that part, not enough brands do a good job of adding on supplementary products that make sense to the person who bought the first product in order to be able to increase revenue.
Yep. So I don't know if there's one right answer to this. Well, I mean, there never really is to anything, but my thought is, and I think is, you kind of almost have to go back to the beginning, you know, now from a position of strength, to your point, but now you know your audience, where before you were guessing, right? You were sort of putting your best guess forward. You're sort of going, this is who we're going after. You know, we've done all the sort of steps, built the funnel, you know, now we're here and we're going, okay, how do we now really blow this up and expand? I think too often someone goes, well, this is what I think they'd like, where now you actually have the audience. It's like you have the ability to look at them and go, like, you know, what do they want? Whether it's asking them directly or understanding from your own data what the demographics are, and then sort of now being able to pull back from that. It makes it a lot more, it's easier in some ways from that point, other than, you know, you have to kind of start from the floor again, but you know sort of what they bought, you know how frequent they may have bought a product, you know sort of who they are in many ways, you know where they are in many ways, and now you can kind of go like, well, someone really loves this product, what are the types of things they would like? And now you sort of focus on the audience again, But now you're from that position of strength because you know exactly who they are.
Yeah. And it's cheaper to sell an existing customer than it is to acquire a customer, right? So if you can be strategic about adding in products and services that make sense to your existing customers, it's a way to exponentially grow your revenue with almost no customer acquisition cost, because most of it is going to happen through email marketing or SMS, or maybe there's some retargeting element in there. It's still going to be cheap compared to running cold, to other places. And the social platforms have done this really well, right? Like people should listen, or people should pay attention to it. You had Snapchat that came out with, daily videos and the rest of it. And Instagram saw what Snapchat was doing, and Instagram came out with stories because they're like, we can do that too.
Put it in our platform, right?
We can keep it on our app, So if you're selling products, you should, once you start hitting that, hockey stick, you should immediately be thinking about what's the next product, And I love what you said about look at your audience. They already trust you. They already bought you. Ask them, survey them, and come up with ideas as to what is the product that makes the most sense. Same thing with services, like add on services, diversify what you're offering. If you are a tax accountant, add bookkeeping services. You have all these people who trust you, business people, and the rest of it, who you're doing taxes for. Why not add on bookkeeping as a part of what you do? So in pretty much every industry, you have this ability to expand your service offering to better serve the customers you already have, and thus with it comes revenue.
It's a really good point that you called out, though, about the fact that a lot of successful brands, once you have, a good relationship with your audience, you are now able to, add things that competitors may be adding as well. But you now have the ability to kind of come from a position of strength because they already trust you. And so to your sort of Instagram, Snapchat analogy, I think having that awareness of your audience and understanding what else they may be sort of, what, not even competitors necessarily, but what else is coming into the market that matches your audience and matches your, your product line or your sort of brand or your brand identity. And are those things you can sort of go, you know what, I think we could do this our way, and we know that our audience is interested in it. That's another great way to sort of be able to expand what you're doing.
Yeah, without a doubt. You already earned the trust, right? So now they trust you, they believe in you, they love the product, and when you come with product number 2, it's going to get a whole lot easier for them to say yes compared to them.
You did the hard work up front.
100%. Cool. So let's review. I just want to do a quick rundown, and then Emerson, if you feel like we've missed anything, touch on it. Figure out what product and what service you're going to offer. Figure out who your audience is. Establish product market fit through reaching that audience, right? Whether it's advertising, content, and all the rest of it. When you're reaching that audience, determine based on your resources and your abilities, what are the things that make the most sense for you at this time. When you find a winner, run. Double down on that winner and go as hard as you can. Once you're in a position of strength, which means diversifying your marketing strategy does not come with risk, you can do it. And if it doesn't work, all good. You'll just try the next thing. Start diversifying and looking for the other places where you should be marketing and advertising. And then determine what new products or services or offerings you can offer to your existing customers to increase revenue, and look for the upsells and cross-sells. And if you can do that, you will go from 0 to $1 million.
100%.
And far beyond.
I don't have anything to add other than I cannot stress enough. Double down, people, when you have found out what's working. That's, if you can take anything from that, that's the takeaway I have, at least.
That's it. Thank you, guys.